Hey guys, it's Taylor, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the Connecticut and European book haul. So let me explain super quickly. Before I went to London, I went to Connecticut to go stay with my roommate for a couple days since we were both studying abroad, and she and her family were so kind enough to let me stay with them and then drive me down to Boston so that I could fly out of Boston into London. So that was really kind, and thank you again. But while we were there, she was also very kind to give me a couple books, so I wanted to share those with you because they're amazing. The first one is the Sriracha Cookbook, which, if you don't know anything about me, you should know that I absolutely adore sriracha. I put it in everything, on everything. It belongs everywhere. So I can't wait to use this and actually try some of these recipes because I adore sriracha and everyone should. The next one is a 2015 guide to the London restaurants and hotels, which was really great. She even marked up the place where we were staying, which was South Kensington, so that was very nice of her. And finally, my friend took me to the bookstore where she worked and allowed me to pick out one book, which was amazing. So I picked up This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab, which I can't wait to read because I've heard a lot of good things about this book on Booktube, and I've heard a lot of good things about Victoria Schwab in general. So thank you so much. And now on to my London book haul. Since I was in an English program, I had to buy a lot of books for class, but I also bought a lot of books for fun. So some of these books are signed because, as I said in my previous video, I took a class on the literature of London, and some of the authors that were still living, of course, came in and signed some of our books, and that was really nice of them. So let's get started with these. So, of course, this is a very anticipated book, and I happened to get Empire Storms by Sarah J. Maas. It's the European version, obviously, and it's very pretty. I haven't gotten to read it because I had a lot of work to do, but this will soon be mine. It's also signed by Sarah J. Maas, which makes it all the more lovelier. The next book I have to share was for my research paper, so it's a little beat up and marked up, but I did really adore this book. Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. If you don't know, Jane Austen is my all-time favorite author. I think she's one of the greatest authors out there, and I adored this book. This was her first finished but last published book. It was published after she died, along with my favorite book by her and favorite book ever, Persuasion. So I wrote my research paper on it, so it's all marked up and highlighted. But basically I was analyzing this book from a feminist perspective, talking about how Jane Austen was criticizing how females were treated in novels, while also criticizing people who critiqued novels as being a lesser form of art, because back then, since novels were predominantly read and written by women, they were seen as like having no value whatsoever in society. So Jane Austen is also kind of criticizing misogynistic views of the novel. So it's a really interesting and really complex book. If you don't know what it's about this young girl named Catherine Morland who wants to be a gothic heroine. She reads gothic novels and her imagination runs a little bit too wild. And yeah, this is a really great book. The next book I got was The Monk by Matthew Lewis. So this book I also read for my research paper. I kind of wanted to get a grasp of what kind of novels Jane Austen was critiquing. So I chose one written by a man and it was published around the same time as Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey, or written a couple years before. So basically The Monk is about this monk named Ambrosio who is driven to sin by the lovely Antonia. And basically women exist to be beautiful or tempting. And if you're a woman who's had sex, you're a witch. If you're a woman who's beautiful, you're an angel. And basically there's a lot of rape and a lot of murder, but it's hilariously bad. Like, it's so funny, it's awful, but I love it. It's written in a way that's incredibly hilarious. So I highly recommend it if you don't get triggered by that kind of stuff, but I do think it's a very good book and I really enjoyed it. The next book I got, I originally bought with the intention of reading it for my research paper, but it ended up being too long and I didn't have time to complete it, so I just still have it. But I do intend on reading it because it sounds really good. And this is The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. This book was also mentioned in Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey. I don't know much about I don't know what it's about very much, but I do know it's a Gothic novel, written by one of the most famous Gothic novelists, Anne Radcliffe, and it features a heroine and what I assume is a scary home and stuff, and I really like the cover. I like the idea of a man just falling into this abyss. But yeah, I hope I'll get to read it maybe around Halloween next year. And continuing with my Jane Austen obsession, I picked up Sanditon, Lady Susan, and The History of England by Jane Austen. The History of England is part of Jane Austen's Juvenilia, which I've already read, but I haven't read Sanditon and Lady Susan. So I'm very excited to get to this. I believe both are her incomplete works. They're works that she started and died before she could actually finish writing them, but I can't wait to read them, and I like that this book is really tiny, and it's golden, and there's a cute little bookmark, so maybe I'll read it over the summer for Booktube-a-thon. The final Jane Austen book that I bought was Sense and Sensibility, and I really love this cover of the little whirlwind in the tea. If you don't know what Sense and Sensibility is about, it's about two sisters, Eleanor and Marianne. Eleanor is very much keeps to herself. She's a very private person. In terms of romance, she doesn't like showing everyone when she's in love. She's very much, I will put on this serious face, even with the man I love, and, I'll never let him know because it's not proper. Marianne is very emotional. She wears her heart on her sleeve. When she likes someone, she'll tell them. If she doesn't like them, she'll let them know. And basically it's about these two sisters and, the guys they fall in love with. And it's also Jane Austen, so it's obviously a morality tale. But I do really like it. If you haven't seen the movie, there's a movie that stars Emma Thompson, Kate Winslet, Alan Rickman, and Hugh Jackman? No, not Hugh Jackman. Gosh, I can't remember his name. But he's in there. It also has the man who plays Cornelius Fudge, and the woman who played the fat lady in the first Harry Potter movie, and the woman who played Dolores Umbridge in the Harry Potter movies, which I think is very amazing. Like, half the cast of Harry Potter is in that movie. Oh, and it also has the guy who played House. It's just, that movie is stacked. But I highly recommend the movie. I highly recommend the book. It was my first Jane Austen book, and it was kind of what brought me out of my Twilight stage. So yeah, highly recommend it. The next book I have to show you is one of my favorite books that I read this semester, and it's Rivers of London by Ben Aaronovitch. This is one of the books I was telling you about where the author came, to our class, and he talked to us about his writing process, and he was really funny. I loved Ben Aaronovitch. My friend got to interview him, and she did a great job, and he was funny and amazing, and I loved how nerdy he was, and he signed my book for Taylor. So basically what this book is about is it's a police procedural, but with kind of this magical element. So London has a secret department of their police force which specializes in magical beings. So if there's a murder going on, they'll go and interview the vampires, or maybe they'll interview this ghost that lives on the block and might be a witness. So they basically kind of cover that. And Peter Grant, it's kind of thrown into this world of ghosts and magic and wizards and warlocks. And it's very interesting, and it kind of takes a scientific angle on this magical world, which I think is very interesting. So I highly recommend it. It's one of the best books I've read this semester, let alone this year. Yeah. Since I loved Rivers of London so much, I picked up the sequel, Moon Over Soho, and Ben Aaronovitch also signed this. It's the sequel to Rivers of London, and I can't wait to follow P.C. Grant with the rest of his adventures. The other book I picked up was Serious Sweet by A.L. Kennedy. This is the book that I had to read and then interview the author for. She was also so kind as to sign it. Yeah. To Taylor, A.L. Kennedy. It was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize for 2016, so it's a very well-received book. Unfortunately, I didn't really care for it. A.L. Kennedy was very kind and very entertaining, but this book is essentially 500 pages of people thinking, and they're not very interesting people. I guess you'll like it if you like romance and almost stream of consciousness and one-day novels. It's personally not my favorite book. I think I gave it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Oops. I did like having the opportunity to interview an author, and A.L. Kennedy was very kind and very receptive to my questions, so thank you very much for that. But this book was definitely not my favorite. We also have House of Fame by Oliver Harris. He was also very kind and signed my book. To Taylor, great to meet you. So yeah, this book is about kind of like the cultish nature of celebrity, and it's a police procedural, except that the main character, Nick Belzy, works outside of the police force, and it's definitely more plot-driven than character-driven, I would say. Nick Belzy is kind of a boring character, and maybe he's supposed to be one of those self-insert characters where you've got to put yourself in his shoes or something like that. But yeah, it's alright. It's not the worst. I think the plot is definitely much more interesting than the characters, but I'm just a very big character person. But yeah, not my favorite book. And last, but definitely not least, I have the Making of Harry Potter, the official guide for the Harry Potter Studios tour, which I went on, and I got to see how the movies were made and all of the hard work that went into them, and it was amazing. And this book basically is just a walking guide of that. So I bought it so that my sisters could also be able to experience what I got to experience. And I'm not going to lie, I may or may not have cried a little. I am very emotional about Harry Potter. It was a very Harry Potter year, I think. This is great. As someone who also studies cinema and media, this was very important for me to learn. Because it's one thing when you see it on the screen, but when you learn all of the hard work and effort that went into making it, you kind of have a different perspective of it. And I was afraid originally that going to see how the movies were made would kind of destroy the magic, but in my opinion, my appreciation for the films grew 10 times that. And since we went right after the release of Fantastic Beasts, we got to see the costumes used in the Fantastic Beasts movie, but not the sets as much. But still, the costumes were great because Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the movie, is amazing. But yeah, that was my London and Connecticut book haul. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, follow me on social media. I am on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr. You can even email me. I'll put all of those links down in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.